Finally, while I am rarely inclined to cite Wikipedia, Wikipedia has 7 references, footnoted, to support its statement, quote, his ownership of the team, the A's, his ownership of the team has been regarded as one of the worst in sports. Now, none of that is my opinion. None of that is my experience. All of that is what I have been reading for the better part of a year. So when I look at a $100 million giveaway, a negligent, really paltry public benefit, and a track record of leaving fans, our constituents, in the lurch, I can't support it.
Here's Brody Brazil.
So that was Supervisor Joe Simitian, who represents District 5 in Santa Clara County. And that's basically the tail end of what he had to say as a direct response to the term sheet that was proposed by the San Jose Earthquakes to the County of Santa Clara, and it's already been passed by the City of San Jose. And in just a second, you're going to get to hear Mr. Simitian's full comments on this issue start to finish. But before that happens, I felt like we needed some proper setup here to understand what the term sheet is all about, what the Earthquakes are proposing, where they want to do this, and how they want to do this. They're asking for a 35,000 square foot practice and training facility that they are slated to pay for. It includes 4 public soccer fields, 4 private soccer fields for the team's use only, all of this on 26 acres at the current site of the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds. They're asking for a 25-year lease, which is initially worth about $8.25 million to the county and could go larger than that if it extends past the 25 years. The give back by the Earthquakes on the public soccer fields is about 250 hours per year of usage for teams and groups and local entities, and we'll get to that number in just a second. 250 hours a year is not even 1 hour per day. But the team is promising to fund their private facility of $50 million privately. So there's no ask there. They just want to build it on this land to go with the rest of this facility. The Earthquakes as a team are also going to fund $12 million of the $18 million cost of soccer fields. So about 2/3 of that $18 million. San Jose, the city, is already signed up. They're already on the hook because they approved unanimously 10-0, $6 million as a contribution to this moving forward. So essentially the city of San Jose would be giving money. The county of Santa Clara would be offering up a lease of this acreage on the land at the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds. The team, the Earthquakes, would receive all net income from the profits on these fields for the first 25 years. So whatever they rent out the fields for, after, of course, the 250 free hours annually, they'll receive all net income from the fields. But on the other hand, the team is also responsible for maintenance of the field and apparently replacement of every single field about every 10 years as necessary. The team, the Earthquakes, also say that if this falls through, if this gets voted down either by the city, which didn't happen, or the county, which is kind of in the process of deliberating yes or no on it, the team says they can build this project elsewhere if the fairground site falls through. And by elsewhere, they're talking about some land that they own right adjacent to PayPal Park, which might make a little bit more sense, and we'll get into that in just a second. But here are some renderings, and I do believe that these are actually a couple years old. We should also mention that this project hasn't just been thrown together, hasn't just been pieced together. It's been thought about for quite some time, and now it's coming to the forefront. Again, the city of San Jose has already approved their $6 million, and now the county is thinking about how they want to handle this. And they made a decision on Election Day, the other day, November 5th, Tuesday. The Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 unanimously to engage in additional talks with the Earthquakes to discuss some concerns they had, some outstanding concerns they had regarding the term sheet. This could have been also approved by the county. This could have been a done deal as of the other day, but the county has decided to hold it up, and largely after the words of Supervisor Simitian and how he phrased things, which again, you'll hear in just a second. And I normally don't do takeaways before we get to the real meat of the video, but I wanted to just do some instant thoughts here about this entire situation. And Mr. Simitian is going to bring up here the earthquakes connection, their direct connection to the Oakland A's. It's via the ownership of John Fisher, and how the Oakland A's were just relocated out of Oakland temporarily to Sacramento and then maybe permanently to Las Vegas. But there was all of the back and forth about public and private financing and drama and tension and frustration. And well, you'll hear how he describes that in just a second. But it's a pretty bold move and ask that the A's didn't get what they wanted publicly in terms of funding, or what they were looking for in terms of funding. And so they left, and now the Earthquakes are asking for a practice facility and some public assistance, funding from San Jose, and some land help, like a good deal on land from the county of Santa Clara. And if they don't get it, well, they might do this somewhere else, or maybe not at all. And again, the team is asking for this. $6 million from the city, that's been approved. A very good land deal from the county, and they want to capture all revenue, net revenue from the fields in the first 25 years. What is that dollar amount? What is that revenue amount? Does it pay entirely for the $50 million training facility? I don't know. But does it cut down on some of it? Absolutely. And the real question is, if they've floated it out there that they can't do this at the fairgrounds, why not do this right next to PayPal Park? I mean, if this is your team's training facility, I mean, logistically, doesn't it make sense to put it right next to PayPal Park? And if you already own that land, why are you trying to lease more land, different land? Why are you trying to do this away from your home base? PayPal Park and the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds are not exactly right around the corner from each other. This is not the most convenient setup if these two things are in two totally separate locations. I mean, it just makes a lot more sense to do it right next door at PayPal Park. Anyway, I wanted you to hear mostly what Supervisor Simitian had to say, and here's how he started the other day when discussing his thoughts about moving forward, not only in a project for the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, but also moving forward on a project with the earthquakes.
So again, just to be clear on the numbers, because I know people are getting their heads filled with a lot of numbers. The county puts 100% of the cost in for the land. The city picks up a third of the cost, 33% of the cost for the facility. The public gets in exchange 1%, shade more, I think it's 1.25%, 1% of the use of the fields, and 100% of the revenue, which was previously indicated at, even with the reduced number of hours, $1.5 million a year. 100% of that revenue goes to the earthquakes, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope folks are following here why I say I think it's a sweetheart deal as to the site that is used by the earthquakes. I think it's a minimal and unacceptable public benefit on the public benefit side. And then there's been some conversation about the ownership of Earthquake Soccer LLC. As I understand it, the principal owner is John Fisher. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, colleagues, I want to be very clear about this. I don't know Mr. Fisher. Wouldn't know him if he walked in the room. Never had any dealings with him whatsoever. So I am looking at the press from the last year. I'm looking at something called the Sports Business Journal that are recalling that, and this is in a piece from October of this year. With the earthquakes, Fisher and co-owner Lou Wolf, quote, used the promise of building a soccer stadium with their own money as leverage to get San Jose to rezone huge parcels of land owned by the two, turning those parcels into roaring revenue streams, end quote. And he's actually quoting Scott Osler of the San Francisco Chronicle. Then there's a piece from September of this year, so none of this is ancient history, by Justice de los Santos at the Bay Area News Group, responsible for our own Mercury News and the East Bay Times, that says, and again I'm quoting directly, there are very few things that can unite voices across the media landscape. The A's departure, speaking of the Oakland A's, from Oakland is one of those few things. National reporters and media personalities alike look to social media to express their discontent. Then quotes ESPN's, well, there are actually 10 to 12. We don't have time for that, Madam Chair, so I'll just pick 3. ESPN's Jeff Passan. Do not allow the people responsible for this to spin it any other way. John Fisher did not have to move this team. This was a choice, a wrong one. History will sneer. Then The Athletics, which is a property owned by New York Times, Evan Drellick says, John Fisher could have fully funded a stadium in Oakland, but he and every other owner feels entitled to hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars to free money. Your officials everywhere keep proving them right. Cespedes Family Barbecue, be a little bit lighter. For over 5 decades, fans brought in. They spent money on tickets and gear. They left work early, waited in traffic. They made time to huddle around the TV. They made A's baseball a big part of their lives. They cared. They bought in. And what did they get in return? They got screwed ruthlessly by forces beyond their control, by a heartless, short-sighted owner who just doesn't get it. Then there's another Bay Area news group writer, columnist, Dieter Kurtenbach. When you buy a professional sports team, you enter into an unwritten but sacred covenant. You are responsible for shepherding the organization for the fans of the team, the city on its chest, and the region it represents. A's owner, John Fisher, failed to fulfill that responsibility. There's no evidence it was ever his intent. Tim Kawakami from the San Francisco Standard. When Fisher's involved in something, it almost always crumbles. Scott Osler, who I referenced earlier from the San Francisco Chronicle. John Fisher, owner of the Oakland Athletics, will not be getting his cleaning deposit back, not after the mess he has made of what was once a perfectly good baseball team. What did Fisher do with the money he made on revenue sharing? Hard to say, although he and his family donated at least $9 million in dark money, secret contributions, to political campaigns in 2010 and 12 to support Republican candidates and to denounce Barack Obama when he ran for re-election. Osler closes with some attitude. Please take your tarp with you, sir, and don't let the turnstile hit you in the rear. And then there is, and I'm almost done, Madam Chair, our own Mr. Clendaniel, who was, until recently, the editorial page editor at the Mercury News, in a signed column, not an editorial of the paper, to be fair. It isn't Fisher's decimation of the A's roster that puts him in the Hall of Shame of baseball owners. It's the utter disdain he has shown for the team's loyal, knowledgeable fans. And finally, while I am rarely inclined to cite Wikipedia, Wikipedia has 7 references footnoted to support its statement, quote, his ownership of the team, the A's, his ownership of the team has been regarded as one of the worst in sports. Now, none of that is my opinion. None of that is my experience. All of that is what I have been reading for the better part of a year. So when I look at a $100 million giveaway, a negligent, really paltry public benefit, and a track record of leaving fans, our constituents, in the lurch, I can't support it. I do think there's the kernel of a good idea here. And I think if folks would come back with a realistic proposal that puts some serious money on the table, because Madam President and colleagues, next year I won't be here. You'll be making hard budget choices. We've talked about that. There'll be kids, communities in need, who need our help. And you'll have to say, we can't be there for you. And one of the reasons should not be that there has been a $100 million giveaway, or a paltry public benefit, or a partner who's not acting in good faith. Thank you. I'm a no vote as the motion stands.